Hey guys, Smoking Eagles Rod Shop, we're back again. I got a video for you today on my lawn and leaf sucker. I've had it for a couple of years and decided that maybe I should do a review on it. When I bought this originally, I couldn't find hardly any reviews online about this that weren't directly from the manufacturer. So nowadays, this year, I believe they have a bigger model than this, but when I purchased this, this was the biggest model. It's the 330XL, and it's got, I believe it's 13 horse engine on it. It's the biggest engine they made. Now they make an electric start kit for this. I didn't get the electric start kit. I mean, it was another, I forget, it was a lot, another $250, $300 or something. So I didn't end up getting that, but if you're thinking about getting a leaf sucker, I'll cut right to the chase. These things work great, depending on, I'm sure every model from every manufacturer works respectably well. Not sure, you know, what your setup is and stuff, but I got a ton of leaves. I use this thing a couple times a year, and it works out real good for me. So I thought I'd do a little review on it, tell you the modifications I did to it to make it easier for us to use. It's definitely usable straight out of the gate, but there's some things that I've done over the years to make this a lot more efficient, a lot quicker, a lot easier. And so I wanted to go over some of those things with you guys and kind of show you what I got set up here. And if you end up buying one or you have one now, maybe these things will, these little tips or hints or whatever will help you out a little bit. So I wrote a handy dandy list here, and we will go down the list and I'll explain some of these things. So one thing that I found kind of annoying is this jack that you use to put it on and off of the mower or whatever you're going to tow it behind. It has a pretty low ratio, and it takes a little while to run it up and down. So what I've done is I've welded a 3/4 nut on the end of the shaft here, and then it allows me to take my drill, and I can just stick my drill right on here, run it down, run it up. Now, obviously that's not a necessity. I mean, something I did, it's quicker, easier. It's still functional if you don't have your drill, obviously. So that thing's pretty cool. Tube bracket. So I got this tube here. I have a 0-turn, and with a 0-turn, you actually have to extend your hose a little bit longer because a 0-turn mower has the engine behind the mower, and so it puts the deck a further distance away from the leaf sucker, and so you have to put an extended hose on there. Well, when you do, this bracket comes with a bungee cord that goes down around your tube and holds it up. Well, I've found that as I go along mowing and sucking leaves up, it had a tendency to move up to here, and then my bungee cord is way over here and my hose is dragging on the ground. And I didn't like that. So what I did is I got an extra hose clamp, took me a little piece of pipe strapping, stuck it around there, got a little bit shorter bungee cord, put it on there and tightened this up, and now it can't move on me over time, and my tube stays right where I want it to stay. And then if I need to adjust it, I can just loosen my hose clamp, move it one way or the other to adjust it a little bit better. And that works out great for me. One more thing on these tubes is I went out and bought a ton more hose clamps, because anywhere where there's a hose clamp, it really should have 2 or 3. Because they have a tendency to kind of work themselves loose and pop off of there occasionally. And you can see everywhere where I got a connection, I've got a bunch of hose clamps on there, because it's annoying when you're driving and all of a sudden you look back and it's just blowing leaves all over the yard, or who knows. But anyway, move on to the next thing there. My deck adapter. So a few things on my deck adapter here. This is actually the grass chute off of our mower. And it's got this pin from the factory, and it had a little nut that they pound on here so that this won't come off of here. Well, to hook this deck adapter up for the leaf sucker, you have to pull this off. Well, I thought, man, I'm gonna be pulling this thing on and off every year. So what I did is I took this rod, I put it in my drill press, and I drilled a little hole in there, and I put a hairpin in it, so that when I want to remove this, I can just pull this pin, slide this out, I pop this off, I put my spring back on there so I don't lose it, toss this off to the side. It takes like all of a half a minute to remove that from my mower. Then they give you this universal adapter here for your deck. I had to cut this out and trim it to fit my deck, which you have to do that too for your specific mower. They have like 2 different styles of these depending on what mower deck you have or what size your deck is. I forget exactly what that's for, but I built these brackets that they give you are universal brackets, and you can kind of align them and drill your holes however you need to do it for your specific application. What I did is I went and got a piece of rod. I don't remember if they sent this rod with it or if I went and dug it out of my scrap pile or got it from somewhere, but I got it to mount directly to my mower, the exact same width that my chute did, so that it mounts exactly like my chute. And I can just pull this hairpin right out of here, set this right down on, line it up. I ground a little chamfer on the end of that so that it wants to find the center of the holes, and it's got an easy little handle there, so you can just line that up. I just slide her all the way in, slap this washer on it, my hairpin, clip, and boom, that thing's on and running. I can have that off and this on in just like a minute. And then when you want to switch back, let's say you want to mow your yard after you suck all the leaves up and you go, oh, my grass is tall, I need to mow my yard. Again, it only takes a minute to switch that back over and pull that off of there. Super handy. So the next thing on here, I've got this tachometer and hour meter that I bought on somewhere on the interwebs for like $8 or $10. And it just takes a watch battery in the back, and it's got 1 wire that goes up on your spark plug, and it just tells me how many hours and what the RPMs are on my motor. I don't actually care about the RPMs. The only thing I bought that for is for the hour meter. They tell you you're supposed to change the oil every so many hours. Well, I use it 4 days a year, and you know, I'm like, I'm not changing the oil on this thing every year for no reason. So I put that hour meter on there, and I can keep an eye on it, and I change it when it needs changed per what the hour meter tells me. Super cheap, easy to do. The front bar on this, so when I put this together and I take it apart every year, so it takes up less space, I put this bottom stays outside. It's like just basically a little wagon when it's all tore apart. I put the engine in the shed, and then this collapses all the way down. If you watch any of their DR videos on these, they show you that it all collapses down and stuff. They make it sound like it's super easy. It's not super easy. It's not necessarily difficult or confusing. It's just this is super tight on here, and so it's putting it together takes a little bit of practice, and there's a few tricks that you can do that I'll tell you about that help put this thing together. They have a rod here that goes in the front, and it goes all the way through here, and it connects the top to the wagon. And I've done the same thing. I've drilled a hole in the end of the rod here, and I put a cotter pin in one side, and then on the other side, I drilled a hole, put a washer, and put a little hair clip. So when I want to remove this, I can just pull that pin. I stick a little punch or anything on the end of there with a hammer and tap it down through. Once you get it down far enough you can grab it from the other side, you can just slide it right out, and then I just put it right back in the wagon and put the clip back in so I don't lose that rod, and it's done for the year. And then, you know, obviously reverse to put it back together. This eye bolt, you have to remove this when you collapse this down, and I noticed that after the first year my canvas was starting to kind of tear, that hole was starting to stretch out around the edge of there. So I just put a washer on there to kind of pinch that together and keep that from trying to rip. And it's worked. It's been a year or two since I started using that, and it's continued to keep it good to go. Let's see what else we got on here. So this is a leaf sucker, obviously. It has other uses. We needed to use, we had a bunch of insulation that we needed to remove, blow-in insulation. And so instead of renting a machine or anything crazy like that, I went and bought these, I forget exactly what they're called. They're insulation recycling bags or removal bags or something. I got them on Amazon. They weren't very expensive. It was like 20 bucks for 2 or 3 of them. But they were giant. They were like 6 feet in diameter and like 10 feet long. And so what I did, this is all removable. You can take this pin out here and this pin out here, and then there's 2 bolts, and then you can remove the engine from the front of this and just use the wagon as a wagon. So I take that off every year and put this in the shed for storage, but that also gives you just the engine unit. And so what we did is we got those bags and we attached them onto here, put a zip tie or a bungee cord around them, had one person out here, and then I took this hose, and I've got an extension hose that you can buy that's an attachment for this, for sucking leaves out of your, wherever your flower bed or whatever, and places you can't reach very easily. And I took that and used that to suck the insulation out of the attic, actually in this building before we added the addition on. So I sucked all that insulation out of there and had it in these giant sausage bags. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I don't want to throw all this insulation away. So I'm like, well, I'll just put it in my house. So I drug this up to the house, and we actually took this hose where it sucks up. We took this end off of it, and we took a little plastic kiddie pool, threw it on the ground. You threw a sausage bag in there about halfway, cut the top of it open, dump the insulation. We had one person basically stand like this with the hose sucking up, and they just use a leaf rake and just rake the insulation right into the end of this. And then up here on this end, I went to big box store and I bought a furnace adapter to go from, like, I believe this is 8-inch down to like 6-inch or 4-inch. And I went out and got corrugated drain tile hose, like 50 foot of it, plugged it right on the end of there, duct taped it, threw a hose clamp on it, drug that up in my attic, and it would blow the insulation perfect. Didn't have to rent an insulation machine from anywhere or do any work. I mean, this thing did it all for me, and obviously insulation, blow-in insulation is not going to hurt this thing. I mean, it sucks up walnuts and limbs and all kinds of, anything that it can get up that hose, this thing will cut up and spit out. So anyway, that's another use that I found for this thing, in case anybody, that's beneficial to anybody. So I think now I'll just give you a couple of helpful tips that I found on putting this thing together real quick, and I'll show you the function of it. So when this thing is full, after we run and it's full of leaves, all you have to do is pull this. It's got this little, it's elastic here. This is up around here like this. This thing's full of leaves. You just push this back up to wherever you want to dump this off at. I always turn this way down to idle, because if not, it's trying to blow stuff all over your face. Back up to where you want to go. You just pull this lever. This tips straight back like that. This little cable holds it. And now you can just come back here, lift up your handle, and this thing poops out a giant freaking leaf block. And it works great. It's really, really good. And then I just hop on the mower and I pull forward about 10 feet so I'm away from all the leaves. I don't have to walk in the pile or anything crazy. And you just close her back down. And probably the hardest part of dumping leaves is pulling this back down, because it's got strong springs in the bottom of this dump bed to help you tip it back when it's clear full of leaves, because I mean it's heavy. So normally the mower's on here so it doesn't try and move as much, but I just grab it here, swing it down, and then I kick that over and make sure that lever's fully latched on there. And then you pull that back on and off you go. Crank your throttle back up and you're ready to suck up some more leaves. Now I'll show you a couple things on the inside of this real quick. When you're putting this together, the hardest thing about putting this together, when this is completely apart, this thing's all completely apart, this bar is not installed, and this bar has a little swing clip here. You slide this out of the way and this folds into the center, and that allows this to collapse down. There's a bar that goes across the front of here on the front, and there's a bar across this back side here. It's right here. There's like 4 screws in it, and that's what holds this thing all the way apart. So when you're going to put this together, the first part you're going to want to do is you're going to want to push this to here and slide this bar onto there, and that kind of holds it apart for you temporarily. And then what I do is one side of this has a hole, the other side actually has a slot, and it's this side because I have a washer on here that has a slot in it. So when you try and put this on, you're trying to stretch this material, and you can see how stiff that is. It's really stretched out. So the trick is you put this side on first and you tighten this nut down just a little bit so it can still swivel. You're going to start it here. You can see where this is kind of scratched up here. Then you just start pushing that down like that, and this will follow right down here like this. And the reason I put this washer on here is because when it gets down to about here, it's really tight and it wants to pop up off of there. So what you can do is you can tighten this down just enough that the threads are holding it and that washer's there. And I take a really big screwdriver and I stick it right in here. I put my hand on the top of here. This thing, I have this laying on the ground. And then I just use that screwdriver and I kind of walk it down on there. And as soon as this edge gets underneath that washer, it can't pop up off of there on you anymore. It kind of has to stay under that washer. And then you can get it up under there and you put your screwdriver in there and you just pry it over just a little bit until that slot lines up. It'll slide right in and you can tighten it down. It's not real easy, but that's the easiest and fastest way to do it. And one person can do it by themselves. That gets that on there. Then you have the chore of putting this bar, this back bar, and the front bar on. And they want to hold this thing super taut too, so they don't like to line up. But again, this is not on the wagon when I do that. It's on the ground. So the easiest way to do that is you put one side on, get two of these screws started. Then you just put your foot right on the inside of here. There's a big piece of steel right here you can put your foot on. It's right here. So I put my foot right here. And then this, I'm standing up here like this. And I put my foot down on the other side, and you can pull up on this and stretch it. And you're standing like this, and you stretch it up, and then you just slide it on. Again, it's not real easy, but that's the easiest way to do it. And then you do the same with this front bar. Same thing. You just have it laying on its side. You stand on it, lift. If you have two people, it's a lot easier because one person can lift, and while it's lined up, the other person can put it on. But I've done it myself a couple of different times, and it's doable. So anyway, those are, I guess, all the installation tips I got for you there. I know it's not anything super crazy, but it will save you a little bit of time and a little bit of a headache. Maybe I'll make another video of when I tear this thing apart this winter. Before I put it away, maybe I'll tear it down and then make a video putting it back, the top back together, just so that you guys can see that. But yeah, anyway, that's my DR lawn and leaf vacuum. Little quick review. It works great. It always starts up for me real good. I'm really happy with it. We got so many leaves out here. It just makes our our yearly leaf situation so much easier because we can just mow. Well, it's not really mowing, but we take this out about 3-4 times a year. It takes about 2 hours. Mow the whole yard, suck up all the leaves. I have to dump this about 3 times to do my yard once, depending on how thick the leaves are. If you wait until, try and procrastinate till the end of the year and have all the leaves out there, it's just too much. And you're just making trips and trips and trips to try and dump this thing. But it will pick up, one load on this thing will pick up a ton of leaves. But we live in the woods, so we got a lot of leaves. So anyway, I hope this helped you guys or helped somebody out there. If you got any questions or anything, put them in the comments down below. I try and respond to people as fast as I can. I got a lot going on. We're trying to get a couple more videos going for you guys. I got some projects coming along. So if you like mini bikes, we're going to be working on a mini bike. I got a little lawnmower that I'm going to be doing some more stuff on, and I'm getting ready to paint a 79 Camaro, so I'm going to have a bunch of videos on painting that and getting it going. And yeah, and I got a big block 455 Buick motor we're going to try and get fired up too. So we got a lot of stuff, kind of in the works here. So anyway, if any of that interests you or whatever, like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, or do all the things. You know what to do. I'm sure you hear it from everybody else everywhere. So anyway, thanks for watching. We appreciate you. Till next time.